Hello, hello, hello. I'm making a video and I want to talk about real estate. I know what the hackers was thinking. It's like I thought she wanted to talk about something else. So, but anyway, I have been watching a lot of real estate videos lately because I love homes. Okay, I love modern architecture. I love homes from Richard Meyer and Zaha Hadid and Frank Gehry and it looks like Mother Mary a little bit, but it's okay. And Brian Foster, and there are some others in the LA area that are really, really good. Forgot the name now. So, really good ones. And forgot the name now yesterday. That one. Environmentally friendly, modern, minimalist architecture. Okay, that is usually has bright colors, lots of white or lots of white marble, granite colors, granite, light granite, gray tone, pastel tones. This is what I love. And so there's this one property called The One. And I have been following this now for several years. What's going on with The One property in Bel Air in LA. It's located on a rolling hill. It is about 3.8 acres for Bel Air. That's very, very big. So, because even just an empty piece of land in Bel Air is extremely expensive because of the location. So, I guess it was in 2012, Niall Miami developer bought the land, and Bill had Paul McClean, the architect, amazing architect from Ireland, built these structures on it. And I can't really say they're houses, they're buildings. Okay, they're massive buildings. And particularly the main building is absolutely huge with several floors and like a swimming pool, very much in the sense that I have always envisioned creating a dream home myself. Before I found that, I have also watched people make imaginary buildings with on the internet with that Minecraft program, and there are some kids that are interested in this, and some of those kids have made really incredible structures just in animation form, and looks really great. And when you do it with animation, you can let your fantasy run, and you don't have to worry about money or land property size. You can just go indefinitely. You can make indefinitely large land properties and build indefinitely large and long structures on it, and it's super. And I would love to do this. So, and the great architect Zaha Hadid, who died in her 60s way too early. I don't know what was going on there. She was living in England. She's originally from Iraq. An amazing woman, a god level soul. I would say, I personally think she is the greatest architect in history, and that's still the case. So, years after she died, I think she died in 2013. I don't know exactly, somewhere around there. And I was absolutely shocked. I've already been following her before that. Could not believe it that this would happen to her. But her company keeps running, and I think she had already hired several other architects that were working with her together. There was an architectural group, and they continue this on. They continue on her legacy in the same way. She has also been working with animation a lot, architectural animation, particularly with 3D animation, virtual tours, and so on. And she has experimented a lot with shapes on the internet, on the computer, in animation programs, and she liked organic shapes. She liked just to let her fantasy run, with certain programs that would expand and that would create tubes and curves, and like some rock you find on the beach. And when she found something that she really liked, experimenting with these shapes, like molding a structure, a 3D structure in animation form on the computer, then she would, once she found the structure that she really, really, really liked, then she would have the computer figure out all the dimensions of it, depending on how big she would blow this up, where this would be placed. Stadiums, like sports stadiums, orchestra, philharmonic orchestra halls and domes in Asia, Europe, all over the world, made like this. Fantastic, absolutely futuristic. And very, very, very amazing. I was binge watching her architectural videos, her animation, and the process of putting it from animation into actuality. So fantastic, fantastic. I still have some breathing problems, so I have to free my lungs. I have to make sure that my back is straight and leaned back, and that I'm breathing freely, so it's not easy. So I've been watching those in 2012, 2013, 2014, every year, particularly when we had Kenny, I was watching Zaha Hadid all the time, every day. I'm a total fan. I dedicated one of my artworks to her. I wanted to give that to her. That was before she died. I wanted to give that to her. I wanted to find her and give that to her. Of course I can't find people of that magnitude. They have so many fans. They get bombarded with fan letters and tweets and all of that. But I always left comments under her videos. I always said the greatest architect in history. I told my dad. My dad didn't feel good about that when I said that, because he's an architect. And I think a lot of male architects out there that probably where that hurts their egos. I'm doing this here with Niall Niam. I do this. I couldn't believe seeing Niall Niam doing that too, stretching his fingers like this and cracking the joint. So so yeah, Zaha Hadid is my number one, okay, for sure. And so which one is second? I would say Paul McClean is second, right after Zaha Hadid. So Paul McClean is amazing, absolutely fantastic. I would hire him for sure. So I don't know if Frank Gehry and Richard Meyer are still working. They may not be working anymore. They're as old as my dad. My dad isn't working anymore. They also look like my dad. My dad looks like he could be the child, a genetic mix between Richard Meyer and Frank Gehry. Complete mix. Complete in between. And it's exactly their age. So they have made amazing works. My dad too. My dad has done some really great stuff as well. Very cute also. He called it postmodern. So to him that was like the era of, I don't know, making things cuter and cozier, I guess, again. In terms of landscape, the landscape structure of the building. So more like trees in order, like this. And very nice, cute. But I am into huge. And I'm into futuristic. So that is my total taste. Okay, I like everything futuristic and very bright. Zaha Hadid is the ultimate. What's that? That's the ultimate futuristic architect. Her stuff is absolutely stellar, and I think that didn't sit well with a lot of male architects. Okay, so, and that's the sexism, and that's their egos. A woman greater than they are. Now, that's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of those. But it's time that these kind of things happen, okay? So they happen for a reason. People need to learn, they need to expand. That's a soul journey. That's part of the soul journey, to expand and to grow out of sexism and speciesism and all of these egoic concepts that people have. I also, the other day, I wanted to make a video, but it was impossible to make a video because Paul and the baby dog were very demanding my attention. So I tried many attempts, finally gave up. So now the doors to to the hallway are closed. I can make a video in peace now, but I like to have him in my video. I like to show him. So, but when I'm outside, so I will always show him, of course. And maybe when he gets more settled and calms down and is content and sleeping, then I can show him here on my couch. But usually he's very active and he gets into my stuff and he shreds stuff up, so I guess it's easier to have these doors closed. And so I wanted to talk about also about all of these concepts of the ego that have to do with hierarchy and with pride and shame and respect. So that's what I wanted to talk about the other day, but I can sort of weave this into this video as well, because it ties into almost every subject that I talk about. For example, I talk about Zaha Hadid and that she's the greatest architect in history, and that the male architects don't like that. Most of them, I guess. Most architects worldwide would probably not admit to that publicly, and they would also act like they're cool with that, with her being this amazing architect, and they would praise her. But inside of their brains it's cooking, and they would rather say something mean, but they can't, because they're academics, they're intellectuals. They would never lower themselves down to a level of bullying or something. So they regard bullying as low class. And I'm only using this now I only say lowering it because that's how they view it. So I don't view anyone as lower or higher. That is my personal view on it. Nobody is lower and nobody is higher than anyone else. We're all precious beings, precious bodies, brain cells, everything. It's people's egos that make a drama out of stuff. That it's the ego that makes things sexist, that views things in a sexist way, in a male dominating way. All of that ties into it. Bondage is sexism. Okay. There are some men who like to be beaten by women. That's much more rare than the other, of course. But that too is neurotic, or that too is bondage, and that too comes from childhood trauma, of course. So it's neurotic and it is mentally ill. And that's a fact. All of that stuff is. All violence is mental illness, really. People need to understand that. So I've been watching a lot of Paul McClean buildings on YouTube. I will continue to do this because I'm not going into the chat room anymore. I've already said everything that I needed to say in the chat rooms. Maybe there's always more to say, but I've really, for years and years, been talking about justice and peace and love. And I have brought that to you from different angles, from different perspectives, with different wordings, different descriptions, different examples. I have pretty much summed it up. Okay. what I have been been wanting to say to the public. And I have really done my job on that. I don't know, I can continue, but then I would get suicidal, and I don't want to get suicidal anymore because of the way the haters are treating me. Okay. And it's sad that they have to treat me like this. When I offered my friendship, and several of them, I had a crush on them, I offered them friendship, my mind, my body, my love, and they stepped on it in the meanest way you can possibly imagine. Okay. Sad. Made me cry rivers. I cried again today, I cried yesterday, I cried the day before yesterday. I keep thinking about it. I don't cry that much anymore about it, but I think about it sometimes, and sometimes when I wake up, and then I cry some tears about it. And then later on, I think about it from a psychoanalytical point of view, and I view it from the sky perspective, and I can see these people more from the sky perspective, and I can say, when someone, that's one thing, that's an absolute clear statement. When someone is mean to someone else, there's something cooking in that person. Okay. So that's a certain, absolute certain statement. Whether Paul will argue with me and say that's genetic, they're just born like that, blah blah blah. When they are mean and particularly hostile to someone, then that's because there's something in their brain that is cooking. Okay. There's something in that other person that they're bullying that bothers them. Okay. That made them jealous, that made them feel unempowered, that made them feel looked down on, or incidentally also, not because, matter of fact is, if someone bullied them deliberately, they wouldn't even feel that offended. So it's these incidental things that occur in their brains. I don't even want to say put downs, because they're never meant as put downs. They perceive it as that. If the architect is a woman and she is a greater architect than my dad, then something is cooking in my dad's brain. Okay. To use this one example. And he doesn't even want to talk about it. He doesn't even want to talk about Zaha Hadid. He waves it off like this. I don't want to talk about it. No. Let's talk about something else. I don't see anything wrong with the subject Zaha Hadid, right? Why is that a problem? Why can't we talk about it? But he can't talk about her. Dismissive sounds like this. Something cooking inside of his brain. What is cooking? Sexism is cooking. Jealousy. Then he feels, he feels threatened, actually. He, as a male architect, feels threatened by Zaha Hadid, by her greatness. It's sad. I've seen some male architects who are particularly from the younger generations that are looking up to her, that are admiring and adoring her, and absolutely finding her absolutely stellar. but they're rare. I would say most of them are gay, and they're not playing this ridiculous sexist game. But there are also some straight men that are from the younger generations, the more modern ones, the ones that are totally above all of that, all this ridiculous ego stuff. They can clearly see she is grand, and they can say she is stellar, okay, and she's the best of all. They can say that. The person she worked with, a German architect, her main right hand in that office, adores her, absolutely adores her. From what I've seen, he's a straight man, about my age, in his 50s, and I think he took over that office as the leading architect, the main CEO, and he was absolutely, he never competed with her. He was a true student of hers. So there are some rare people that are like this, that are beyond ego, but it's very, very, very rare. And then particularly someone from the older generation, like my dad, who was the CEO, the boss in his office. He had other architects work in that office as well, of course, but they were working for him. And then he encounters this greater architect who is a woman, and then that stuff goes on in his old-fashioned brain. You know, the ego that has attached itself to him being a male architect of his generation, who feels like if a woman architect is greater than he is, then that somehow messes with his testosterone, or with his maleness, or with feeling great. It ties into this. It has to do with this. It has to do with this, with the gender, of course. You know, the gender it's huge for the ego. The ego is really gender oriented with all of this. So when someone is a straight man like my dad, identifies as that, the ego latches onto it completely, docks onto it on every docking point. Ego. And then the greater architect, the woman, it threatens that self-identification that he has. And it doesn't feel good. And that's why he reacted like this. I thought that is ridiculous. But but it is what it is, you know, looking at it from a higher perspective. So it is what it is. But yeah, I'm leaving my parents far behind in the dust when it comes to intellectualism and soul journey and mental growth in that sense. And it's not a big deal. It is what it is. They are where they are, okay, full of ego. That is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't change that. they are where they are, and they should be left alone. They should be treated well. They need to be treated with respect and with love. They need to be cared for. Okay, so, and because of that, I stepped out of there. I said, keep that money for caregivers, okay, which my brother hired now, finally. I'm so glad. And whether the money is being mismanaged by my brother or anyone is their business. It's not my business. I tried to give my 3 cents with that. I got mad at them also several times, which doesn't do any good. But it was the right and the most mature thing of me to do, to say, I don't want the money anymore, okay? Also the inheritance or the healthcare money, I don't want it anymore. You use that now wisely for caregivers. So I wish them the absolute best, If I had money, I would pay back, because they have given me a lot of money in my life, which I didn't use wisely also, on top of it. So but it is what it is. I'm learning, it's a school, it's a soul school. Life is a soul school. My favorite scientist, my absolute favorite scientist, is Dr. Bruce Lipton. He is the absolutely ultimate, the total of all scientist sums. Okay, that is what Dr. Bruce Lipton is. The second one is Dr. Rupert Sheldrake. So Bruce Lipton, I heard, lives in Australia, but he's originally from the United States. He is Russian descent, and he found his dream woman, and I'm so happy for him, because he talked about that too very openly in his book, about this mind over matter and how we wish for something, how we can stand in our own resistance. He is a molecular biologist, and he talks about the scientific things, how far science has come, how far science has reached, and he talks beyond that. And I'm fully on board with him on it, what he says. So it goes way into the metaphysical. Metaphysical means outside of the physical realm. The spooky area that most people don't want to talk about. But it's there, okay, obviously. So that's what quantum physics touches on, okay, and then goes even further. It goes into the ether, okay. So subatomic particles that go into quantum physics into the ether, like quarks and neutrinos, okay. Helena Petrovna talked about this in the 1800s already, way before science has ever reached into that zone. Okay. She already talked about this in theory. She was an absolute genius. People were not ready to hear this. They didn't even know what to make out of that. So scientists today, they will, if they are open-minded, they will put Helena together with quantum physics. And I know that Rupert Sheldrake and Dr. Bruce Lipton are doing this. Okay. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake and Dr. Bruce Lipton, they would put her in with quantum physics, of course. And they would recognize her as an absolute genius, for sure. So when I watch shows that show grand architecture, such as Zaha Hadid and Paul McClean or Brian Foster and others, Sanders architects are great also. But this one, I can't remember the name. I have to go back on and study that. So he looks like he is part Turkish or Indian, I don't know. In LA, he builds ecologically, and Sanders architects are also interested in ecological building, and I know Paul McClean is interested in it, using daylight, using as much daylight as possible, using the sunbeams of love from the sun. Okay, solar panels makes sense, so having a complete eco house, where you utilize the sunbeams that are received by solar receptors, that are then charging up a very large battery for the home battery. Some of these batteries are very large, but they can be stored. They are like those really large TV screens. They can just hang on the wall. They're only like 2 inches deep, like this, and so then very large, like wall-size painting, basically like a painting that you hang on the wall. And they store a lot of energy, and they make batteries better and better and better. Okay, and all the time the battery capacity gets increased all the time. There are amazing scientists that are working on this all over the world, and Elon Musk always praises these people and works with them, and uses their batteries then for his cars, of course. Now he has developed a car that has, with a battery that has 1,000-mile range. You can drive for 1,000 miles before you have to recharge. And now there's a new battery, a car battery that recharges in 15 minutes. So still a little bit slower than the gas pump, but 15 minutes. People can spare 15 minutes if they can drive for 1,000 miles on that charge. So it's getting better and better and better in that direction. So this is definitely the future. This is definitely what's happening. In a few years, we will not have combustion engines anymore. The car manufacturers are all phasing out combustion engine cars. So this is great development that I absolutely love to see. Okay, I'm absolutely thrilled and happy about this. So, and then robotics, of course. We have to have robots that are recharged, that charge themselves up. So in the future, we will have robots that, as in my story, in my novel that I wrote, the AGI project, it's on Blogger, about 100 pages long. I already envisioned this, a robot that looks absolutely exactly like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was 40, when he was in his prime, and with all the muscles, and big and strong and all of that. He goes to Joshua Tree National Park, and he'll stand in between the Joshua trees that are all lifting their arms up like that. Cacti trees. And that's why they call them Joshua Tree, because they resemble the praying Joshua, praying to the infinite cosmos. And then Arnold Schwarzenegger robot stands there and lifts his arms up, has maximum sun exposure to his entire body, because the outside of his body, the skin, are these are all solar receptors. Every part of his skin, of the outside, are solar receptors, and that's what they're going to be made out of. Okay, they may have a skin that looks like mine, like silicone sort of, and but still has solar receptors in it, and they charge themselves up through the sunlight for an hour or something, standing there, and then they're fully charged, and then they can get going, multitasking with all kinds of stuff for a week or maybe a month before they have to go out there and charge themselves up again for an hour through sunlight. Okay, so now nobody can argue against that. Okay, no, that's free energy. That is the ultimate. That's the way to go. We run on sunlight. Okay, our dogs run on sunlight. Okay, we need sunlight. The rhododendron tree needs sunlight. Okay. All beings need sunlight. My dog goes out there every day and sunbathes. Okay. He loves the sunlight. He loves the sunbeams of love coming towards him, going into his skin, creating vitamin D for his body. He loves the sunbeams of love. And I do too, and I go out there with my office chair and I sit in the sun, and then I go into the corner and I get grounded on the ground. This is very important, to get grounded with the earth without having an insulation between you and the earth. The house is an insulation, my shoes are an insulation. I have to go out there and I have to kneel down. When it's wet, I put my hands down on the grass for like 15 minutes, and I stay like that to get grounded, to release all that bottled up electronic energy, and balance it out and bring in, I think, what they call the negative ions from the ground, and balance out your electric charge in your body. We have electricity in us. Okay. Our neurons run on electricity. It's a biological, internal electricity. They have cords, everything. They're called axons. They're microscopic, of course, but yeah, it's the same principle as my big electric cord that I have that at the other house, that runs from one end of the house to the other. So the brain is like one crossing of axons of interconnections that is happening in the cortical areas. So it's really, really amazing what's going on. They create action potentials. Okay, so that has to do with magnetism, with electricity. That's an exchange of ions, of protons. What else? Neutrinos. Yeah. So those are protons and electrons and ions and all kinds of magnetism. They exchange polarity. That's what electronics is all about. So it's on a microcosmos in the brain, in the whole body. This kind of stuff going on all the time. We can bottle up too much of a lopsided energy, like this energy bundle of a lopsided, like, I don't know, lopsided ions, lopsided protons or something. So we have to go out there. I'm not an expert on this. I'm just portraying this as best as I know it. So I have to study more on this. You have to go out there, you have to lie down, you have to put your hands on the ground, okay? And you have to let that energy flow through your body. It's very, very important. This is not magic or something. This is actual, total science, okay? There are scientists that have confirmed this. Okay? There are many shows on this, there are many documentary films on this. I highly recommend to all of you, Sandy, very important, watch these grounding documentaries. I highly recommend it to you, Sandy, to do this every day. It will make you feel better. Okay, all of you guys out there, guys and girls, very important. Every day, I go every day in wind and weather. It doesn't matter how cold it is. I put my big puffer jacket on, I go out there. If it's too cold, I just put my hands on the ground. Okay, so in the summertime, I put my feet, my bare feet on the grass, feels really good. And the best is if you can go into a pond, into a natural pond. That's my dream for the future, that we can't afford to hire Paul McClean or Zaha, Hadid or any expensive architect, of course. I talked to an architect before, a very well established architect. He was very nice out there in Ashland, and he said to me, if you have a limited budget, you don't need to spend that much money on an architect. You can get these dome houses in form of commercial greenhouses. Okay, they make them for you, and you can get them for a fraction of the price that you hire an architect for. And I was very grateful to him for telling me that. So I found these about 100 feet by 30 feet tube dome tunnels. Okay, greenhouse tunnels. Those are all weather tunnels, and they are made out of a very thick plexiglass, storm resistant, and they have a round dome tunnel, but they have a snow peak on the top where it's sort of like leaping over a little bit, so that snow in winter time in the desert out there can slide off to one side, and the other side is sort of in a snow shadow, and the stuff can fall off the other side. And they figured out that works the most efficiently for snow coverage. So, and that's really nice, to have those. And they cost about $50,000 each. And I don't know if the construction is in the price. I hope so, because we could not pay any more money than that. So, and we want to get 2 of those. We can only get that once we've sold the other house, the Oregon house. So Joe Biden is causing an economic collapse now. This is infinitely sad, and I don't know what's going to happen and how this situation can be solved, or how a total depression or an inflation can be prevented. So that's why he's deliberately, not him, he's senile now, the people that are running the White House, which is the corporate agenda. That's why they created this artificial war now, so that they can gain something financially from it. Okay, they'll put people back to work and so on and so on. So it will boost the economy in a horrific way, okay, by causing suffering in the world. Horrific. So, but I don't want to talk about that for very long. It's very depressing, and there's not that much to talk about. I can only say this is what's happening, and it is infinitely sad, and I pray to the infinite cosmos that the beings in the world don't have to suffer from this. And I'm terribly worried for green brass bastards in the Ukraine. Absolutely terrified for them. So I stay in touch with them on Facebook. I keep checking on them to see what's going on, if they post something and how they're doing. I ask them how they're doing. I don't know if they're going to be responding. I said I'm definitely praying to the infinite cosmos to protect their dogs and them and all of them from that situation. Very scary situation out there. And that's the only thing I'm gonna say to this, is I personally believe that Vladimir Putin is not interested in a war. That I believe that Vladimir Putin and Russia, they will just take measures in terms of rational solutions, okay, not in terms of retaliation or going to war. They will do everything they can to mitigate the situation, okay, to fix the situation and to prevent a war from happening. That's my personal view on it. So the aggressors are the corporate agenda from the United States, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, the weapon manufacturers, the US military. Okay, those are the aggressors, and they have no business out there. Okay, what they're doing is an atrocity to boost the economy, to terrorize the Ukraine and Russia and that former Soviet Union area out there, to terrorize these people, to boost the US economy. That's an atrocity. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about this. So just want to say more about the amazing structures, particularly my favorite one called The One. And I feel sorry for Niall Nayami because he put so much work and passion into that. That's his baby, that's his art project. It is his art. Okay, so although he hired Paul McClean, and Paul McClean put his art and his style, of course, into it, but Niall Nayami is the developer, and he is the one who gave him the contract, who told him what he wants to have, what structures and how they're supposed to look like. And he chose Paul McClean because, of course, they resonate in taste. They make an amazing team. It's a dream team of developer and architect. Okay, absolute dream team, and they created a masterpiece. Okay, this is the most amazing architecture, the most amazing place, the most sacred place, I would say, in the whole world. That's what I think. That's just my personal view on it. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. That's just my personal view. So when I first saw that, I was mesmerized. That was many years ago. I saw that was still under construction to the most part. The pools weren't finished yet. I was mesmerized. And but I already knew he's not gonna sell that for $500 million. Okay, so that was his asking price. $500 million, baby. Nobody, not even an oil sheik, is gonna pay that. And they didn't. So I have to wrap up the video now. Almost done with the video. Just 2 more minutes. So finally he couldn't find a buyer. So finally, in order to make it through financially, he had to actually, I think he filed for bankruptcy. And then I don't know if that's true. To save himself, but he had to also, the money he put into it was borrowed also. That's also a thing I would never do, personally. I never recommend to do this. This is risky business. You play with fire when you do this, when you borrow money, because then whatever you create and you can't sell then goes back to the creditors, of course. My parents have done that game. I would never do this. So huge stress for that guy Naomi. I feel sorry for him. He's my age actually, and he's shooting large with architecture like this, so successful, and I sit here on this couch. I'm jealous. So, but anyway, he's amazing and great person, and he has so many ideas. He's into holistic healing. There's so many things I could talk to him about. He's very interesting, that guy. So, but he finally had to, this property had to be auctioned off. Okay, and there's another developer on YouTube who talked about this, Scott, his name, and very informative videos. And Scott, he showed us in detail what happened with that auction, and that there was this anonymous bidder coming in, and the anonymous bidder finally made the highest offer of 126 million, and that was it. No one else bidded above him. So that was it. $126 million for the one, and he got it, and he had to pay a whole lot more, many more millions for this auction house, and that's that entire process. So that bidder ended up spending $141 million on that property. So come here, baby, come to me. He's coming in at the right moment now as I'm wrapping up the video. He cannot be interrupting me now, because we are now at the end of the video, and yes, we can do action now. Action time. Okay, I'm gonna play rope with him before we go to sleep tonight. I have to do this. So, but that anonymous bidder didn't stay anonymous. His name is Richard Zagian. I don't know if I pronounced the name correctly. Very good looking man, and he is the founder of Fashion Nova, which is a very, very highly successful fashion company, and I'm happy for him. So, peace and love.